Can you imagine the feeling of losing $21 billion in just a few months? No. The Oracle of Omaha himself, Warren Buffett, came face to face with that reality at the outset of 2020. And yet, miraculously, the investing icon is still worth more than the entire GDP of Croatia, Bolivia, and Uruguay. With a tear-jerking $81 billion to his name, the stock market guru puts the majority of so-called wealthy celebrities to shame. As the saying goes, you gotta spend money to make money, and Warren Buffett's been spending money in all the right places for decades. Okay, so 80 billion is a monumental figure, and honestly, it's almost too big to comprehend. So let's put it in easy-to-understand terms. Warren Buffett is almost 300 times richer than Dwayne Johnson, one of the richest modern-day actors. He's almost 170 times richer than star baller LeBron James, and he makes the infamous Wolf of Wall Street, Jordan Belfort, seem more like a mouse than a wolf. For every dollar to Belfort's name, Buffett has exactly 800. This guy is seriously loaded. If we do the math, in his nearly 80 years of investing, Warren Buffett has made, ready for this people, $2,739,726 every single day. That's insane. With numbers like that, you'd assume his salary would be in the stratosphere. Nope, not quite. Reflecting the man's well-known modest personality, the Berkshire Hathaway chairman annual salary is a comparatively low $100,000, and it's been like that for more than 25 years. The majority of his cash actually comes from his stock. Even with that absurd wealth to his name, Warren Buffett isn't the richest man in the world. In fact, he's not even in the top 3. Each of Elon Musk, Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, and Mark Zuckerberg have deeper pockets. The Amazon founder has a net worth of $188 billion. The Facebook CEO is worth $97 billion. The Tesla visionary boasts $90 billion to his name, and the iconic Microsoft co-founder has $116 billion sitting in his bank. As we circle back to the man of the hour, before we discuss how Warren Buffett manages to distribute $80 billion, let's analyze how he made it there in the first place. While other kids his age were playing hopscotch, a young, daring Warren Buffett was on a fast track to making money. His entrepreneurial spirit was on display from the get-go. At only 6 years old, he bought 6 packs of Cokes from his grandfather's grocery store for 25 cents, and then resold them individually at 5 cents a pop, pocketing a nickel in profit. 5 years later, at just 11 years old, Buffett made his first investment. He bought 3 shares of a company called City Service Preferred for $38 each. Soon after the purchase, their price took a dive, hitting $27. While some would panic seeing their shares tumble, Warren remained resilient. They spiked back up to $40 each, and he sold them for a small profit. But before too long, City Service Preferred exploded all the way up to $200 a share. Warren was kicking himself for selling out too early. This early lesson proved crucial to the great investor's long-standing philosophy: be patient and never panic. As a teenager, Warren would spend his days watching and listening to the investors at his father's small brokerage firm. Meanwhile, he saved all his pennies from a number of odd jobs. At one stage, he was earning about $175 a month as a paperboy for the Washington Post. That was more than most of his teachers were making at the time. Warren was clearly obsessed with business. He even bought used pinball machines and set them up in local shops. By the time he'd finished college, the business-savvy youngster had accumulated $9,800. Over $100,000 by today's standards. But it was his transition into the world of stock marketing investing that paved the way for ultimate success. With knowledge from the New York Institute of Finance under his belt, Buffett spent time as an investment salesman before becoming a securities analyst working alongside Benjamin Graham, the man widely considered as the father of value investing. When Warren hit 30 years of age, he surpassed the magical $1 million mark, but it didn't stop there. Since becoming chairman of Berkshire Hathaway in 1970, Buffett's investing strategies have allowed him to continually find diamonds in the rough, pushing him well up into billionaire territory. What were those investing strategies? And more importantly, how did Buffett manage to put them successfully into action time and time again? To understand that, we first need to understand the stock market. At its most basic level, the stock market is like any other marketplace. Partial ownership of companies, otherwise known as shares, are the product. Buyers and sellers negotiate prices, and when they can agree on a price, a trade is made. So effectively, every time Warren Buffett has purchased shares of a company, be them in Coca-Cola or Amazon or anyone else, someone else needed to be on the other side of the transaction as a seller. Being a wise investor comes down to two things: time in the market and timing the market. The former is a simple concept. The longer you hold shares of a company, providing that their fundamentals are sound, the greater opportunity for growth and compound interest. Just think of Apple's little-known third co-founder, Ronald Wayne. When the tech giant was still in its infancy, he sold his 10% stake in the company for just $800. Had he sat tight, that 10% would be worth more than $100 billion. The latter concept, timing the market, is just as important. In Warren Buffett's own words, be fearful when others are greedy, and to be greedy only when others are fearful. That means taking advantage of market crashes, looking at them as a time to buy, not as a time to sell. Of course, in order to be greedy, Warren needed to be willing to risk his money on the table. As the old saying goes, you've got to spend money to make money, and in the case of the Oracle of Omaha, he spent it on a number of incredibly successful companies. Buffett has made thousands of trades over his career, but here's a few of the more notable ones for you. Via Berkshire Hathaway, Warren bought a 9.3% stake in Bank of America after the GFC. Frankly, it was a bargain. His $5 billion investment gave him shares at a price of $7.14 each, a huge dip from the high 20s that the bank was previously trading at. 2 decades earlier, in 1989, he purchased equity in Wells Fargo at a measly value of $3 per share. It got as high as $64 back in 2017. In fact, Buffett's investment was so successful that he was forced to sell some of his shares in order to stay below 10% ownership of the company. Otherwise, before he knew it, he would have been running the joint. Around the same time, he also invested heavily in Coca-Cola. The $1.3 billion worth of shares in 1987 is worth roughly $18 billion today. As for a couple recent highlights, he notably bought nearly $1 billion of Amazon shares in 2019 and acquired equity in a cloud-based software company called Snowflake in 2020. For all his winners, the much-beloved businessman has made his fair share of mistakes, most recently being the choice to buy positions in the now-destroyed airline industry, a choice which cost him billions. Alas, he's still got more money in the bank than we could ever comprehend, but you wouldn't know that by the way he spends his money. As a notoriously frugal man, one who spends just $18 on haircuts, Warren Buffett doesn't splurge on fast cars like your Kanye Wests or Floyd Mayweathers of the world. In fact, to this day, Buffett drives a modest 2014 Cadillac XTS, worth a touch over $23,000. Its predecessor was a metallic beige 2006 Cadillac DTS, which he sold for $122,500 at auction. He also sold his Lincoln Town Car for $70,000, with the proceeds going to charity, of course. While his car collection is far from vast, he absolutely loves private jets. He initially splurged on a Bombardier Challenger, but sold it when he decided to become the owner of an entire fleet, NetJets. Planes aside, the low-cost mentality with cars also extends to his real estate. Despite Buffett's incomprehensible wealth, his home is far from lavish. He's lived in the same humble dwelling in Omaha since 1958. Back then, the 5-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom Nebraska property cost him $31,500. These days, it's estimated at over $650,000, and if you ask Warren, he'll tell you it's the third best investment he's ever made. He also bought this vacation home in Laguna Beach, California with the help of a 30-year mortgage for $150,000 in 1971. Not too shabby, right? The Ocean View 6-bedroom house accumulated an enormous amount of value over the years, finally being sold in October 2018 for $7.5 million. Buffett's always said that he's never had any great desire to have multiple houses. Instead, most of his cash has gone back into his business, Berkshire Hathaway. It's not easy for an investment company to outperform the average return of the S&P 500 index, but amazingly, Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway has done so year after year. Since 1965, Berkshire's stock has averaged a compound annual return of 20.3%, more than double the S&P 500. But that doesn't mean his Berkshire office is anything remarkable. It's far from it. Take a look. That desk is over 75 years old, belonging originally to his father, and that little train goes back to his childhood, originally found by his older sister. It's common knowledge that Warren Buffett doesn't even have a computer in his office. In fact, he doesn't spend much on technology at all. Still using a flip phone up until this year. Before 2017, he'd managed to send just one email in his entire life to Jeff Rakes of Microsoft. The Oracle himself, at times, owned as many as 475,000 shares of Berkshire Hathaway. However, in recent years, he's humbly been offloading a considerable amount of them to charity. Astonishingly, through his shares, Buffett has already given away $37 billion to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and is further committed to donating 99% of his entire wealth to philanthropic causes. Why? Because he signed the Giving Pledge, an initiative he and Gates started in 2010, which has grown to $1.2 trillion in total pledges since. Not only is Buffett giving away everything plus the kitchen sink, but he's also encouraging other celebrities to follow suit, hoping to broadly improve health and education across the world. Other celebrities shell out for private islands, solid gold cars, Manhattan penthouses, billion-dollar yachts, and designer fashion, but Warren Buffett doesn't have a bar of it. At the end of the day, he's a frugal saver, and the fact that he spends no more than $3.17 on his daily McDonald's order doesn't prove that, then nothing will. Have you ever invested in the stock market? How'd it go? Let us know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to The Richest, and have a great day. Catch you next time.